Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Ashley. Ashley is a dear friend of mine. I've known her for over a decade. We used to work together at the Women's Center. I was a labor and delivery nurse, and she was the head pharmacist. Ashley shares a very powerful story tonight. Trigger warning, we do discuss suicide, homicide, and a lot of grief and loss. Ultimately, though, she shares her story with such poise, such strength, and this sense of empowerment. She embodies hope. She embodies love, a phenomenal mother, a phenomenal person. She is someone that loves everyone and has no judgment in her heart at all. I know you guys are going to appreciate this story tonight, so let's get into it. I've known you for, 12 years? A long time.
Yeah, a long time, it seems like. Yeah.
Yeah, so me and Ashley know each other because we worked together when I was a labor and delivery nurse for 10 years, and you were the head pharmacist over there.
That's right. Yep. So
Yep.
we met through working in the Women's Center together and having that experience together. It was great.
Yes, and I've always just been drawn to you. You have this aura around you of just like hope and love and just good energy. I think most people are drawn to you. And
Thank
so
you.
I didn't know your story for the longest time. I don't think maybe you shared it a lot, which I understand, until one day I found out your story and I was like, there is absolutely no way this happened to this
Yeah.
girl. She carries none of that with her to this day. You don't exude anything that shows that you've been through an intense amount of trauma. You carry yourself with poise and grace and Jesus, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to get into your story, but before we do, we're going to
Yes.
start our episode out with a quote like we do every time. And the one I have for your episode came to me by shout out to my pastor, Pastor Chris at local church Forsyth. This was our topic this week in his sermon. And so it's from 2 Corinthians 4, 8 through 10. It is, we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our hearts. What does that make you feel?
Gosh, so many things. This is so funny how you have chosen this for me. It's so relevant in my life right now. When you become a Christian, you think that your life should be easy and full of wonderful things, and God wouldn't allow bad things to happen to you. When you allow God to work in your life, you realize that it's actually the opposite. That God doesn't make bad things happen to you, but things do happen in your life and he is there in the eye of the storm with you. This whole idea of pain and sorrow but not letting it crush you is exemplified in the life of Jesus, by knowing that God sent his son to suffer. I think when we allow that to be reflective in our life, that there's going to be hard things, there's going to be struggles, there's going to be things that you have never anticipated in your life that you would be going through. I have been through so many things in my life that I never thought, but if you allow the darkness to show you the light, it will every single time. And I think that's just exemplary in the life of Jesus. God sent his son, his flesh and blood, and he died for us and he suffered for us. And even as a man walking around the earth, he showed us how there were struggles and how you can turn that into the glory of God. I wear a bracelet every single day. I'm wearing it now that says grace on it. It wasn't until I was in college that I really learned what grace was. I was actually sitting in a women's conference studying the Bible, and it said, grace is the undeserving, unending love of God. And I think I wear a bracelet every day. I teach that to my kids. I don't think we as humans give ourselves enough grace. God gives us grace, but we don't give ourselves enough grace. So going back to the scripture, I feel like in those moments of despair, if we let the hardness of life pull us down, it will. it will crush us. If we allow the hardness and the darkness to show us Jesus and show us the light, it will do just that. You just have to be patient enough to sit in it, and you have to not avoid it. And you have to not say, well, I'm not believing in God anymore, or I'm being hardened by this, because that's not him. And that's not what we are called to do. We realize our humanity in the good and the bad in life. You can't have the good without the bad. And if you allow it to crush you, then it will. And I think
Yeah.
it's a choice. Everything in life is hard. Everything. Saving money is hard. Going to the gym is hard. Eating well is hard. But the other choice that you can choose is not doing those things and suffering the consequences of a bad health and not feeling well and having fatigue and drowning in debt. I think those are the things that, you get to choose your hard. So I think God just shows us all of those things. And I think he's shown me that in my life. So it's very, very relevant in thinking that you thought of that scripture of me, because I feel like I was like, woo, gave me chills.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so
it's,
funny because I was actually racking my brain to find the perfect quote for your episode because
yeah,
I've known you for so long and
yeah,
it's just such an honor to have you on my show. And I really wanted this
yeah,
quote to be important and
yeah,
relevant. And I was like looking for weeks and weeks. And then I went to church on Sunday and here my pastor was speaking this.
yeah,
And it just like literally perfect. God talks to you in so many ways. But when
so much.
when Pastor Chris was speaking about this, it's really in the Bible, this is about like Paul going through adversity and
Yeah,
resilience. But what was so interesting is that the topic that came up was when you're going through suffering, people are watching you, right?
yeah.
So do you see Jesus in your suffering? Do they see Jesus in your suffering?
Mhm.
And that whole topic is what made me think of you because
Yeah,
I saw Jesus in your suffering. You
yeah,
exude it. You exude
yeah,
his love and his light, even
yeah,
though everything that you've gone through. It
yeah.
makes me tear up just thinking about it. This Bible verse, it hits hard,
It
especially.
does.
Yeah. Well, I am so honored for you to tell your story. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to say, go back to our relationship and how we were young moms at the same time. It's very interesting and so great. Just even the fact that we are still friends and in the same circle, and just like that we've reconnected. That you're my nurse practitioner and take care of me. Yes, which is such an honor too for me to be a patient of yours, not only a friend but a patient of yours. I just wanted to take a minute too to say how much I honor you as a mother and honor you as a human being as well, and the things that you have overcome. I think when you find someone in your life like that you parallel with, you respect them so much, which I have so much respect for you, and overcoming your obstacles as well. Loss, adversity, resilience and strength, and you're exemplifying that too. Not just as just being a marathon runner and what you're doing physically to your body and pushing yourself to the limits, which I also not a marathon runner, or I'll never be a triathlete or an Iron Woman like you will, but I exercise and being physically fit, and has been such an outlet for me and a
Mhm.
lifesaver even. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you for being a strong mom and showing your kids what a strong independent woman can do, and I just honor that so much. So I'm happy to be here and share my story today with you. Okay, so I grew up in North Georgia in a little teeny tiny town called Tunnel Hill. And people often go, well, where the heck is Tunnel Hill, Georgia? And I say, well, have you ever heard of Dalton, which is the carpet capital of the world, or it's 30 minutes south of Chattanooga, Tennessee? And they say, oh, yeah, I know where that place is. So I grew up in a very small town, and had three sisters. I'm number two of four sisters. And my mom was a pharmacist as well. And my dad had a mishmash of jobs. He was mostly a truck driver, but he was in and out of a lot of jobs because of his addiction to alcohol and drugs. And so, but growing up, I had good experiences and memories and fun, and I loved having three sisters. My older sister is only 15 months older than me, so it kind of felt like I had a twin sister, if you will. And then my younger sister, next younger, is 6 years younger than me, and then the baby is 9 years younger than me. So I kind of felt like a little bit of a mom, but also kind of felt like I had a best friend and a twin with my older sister. So we just had a really fun dynamic. My mom was the best mom ever. She was strong. strong. She was a pharmacist. She always taught us to just believe in ourselves, love ourselves, and value who you are on the inside. So I really felt like I had a good childhood, in spite of my father, who was definitely very hard to live with. So I have a lot of good memories. I have a lot of bad memories too. The first time I realized that something was going on is when I was 12 years old. I'd always kind of known there was something about my dad. I wasn't really sure. Years later, it would be revealed to me that my mom did a lot of covering up. She did a lot of hiding things and keeping things behind closed doors because she was a protector and she was a mom. You know, we would do that for our children too. And so I knew something was always off about my dad. He was an angry kind of man, but he also was very loving at the same time. So it was you knew he loved you as a dad, and he loved little kids. He was kind of playful, very artistically inclined. And my dad could pick up a guitar and play the piano just by ear. He could draw. He was very talented in that way. But when my parents were younger, she had both me and my older sister while she was in pharmacy school. So she had two young babies by the time she was 25. So my dad, to support my mom while she was going through pharmacy school, became a truck driver. And as if some people don't know, in the truck driving world, you do a lot of driving, obviously, so you have to be awake. So there's a big problem with alcohol and drug abuse, mostly stimulant use. But when you get really high on a stimulant, you can also want to get really low with a downer. So it's a dangerous place to be in. So my dad started out using some methamphetamines, got into some cocaine to try to keep himself awake at night when he was driving trucks. And so I think that's what ultimately led down this path of addiction and alcoholism. But when I was 12 years old, my mom woke me up in the middle of the night, and we lived in a really small house, the six of us. And my two younger sisters shared a bedroom with my parents. It was a very large room, long room, and one half of the room was kind of sectioned off for my sisters. My mom woke me up in the middle of the night and said, I need you to come down here and I need you to sit with your sisters. And I was very confused, 2 o'clock in the morning, what's going on, very worried. And my mom says, your dad is somewhere he shouldn't be, and he is in some trouble, and I need to go pick him up. But I need you to sit down here with your sisters. You go back to sleep, but watch over them. And I think in that moment, and again, years of therapy and being now 44 years old, I look back at my 12-year-old self, and that 12-year-old in that moment became, okay, I'm the second mama. I'm the protector. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but my job now, she's asked me to help, is to be a little mini mama and to protect her. And I'm going to protect my mom as well. She did come back in the morning. I don't really remember the events of that night, other than I very vividly remember at 12 being very aware for the first time that my dad had a drug addiction problem and an alcohol problem. I also remember getting in his van, pulling the sun visor down, and a Narcotics Anonymous card, like a business card, falling into my lap when I was probably between 12 and 13, and looking at it and going, what the heck is this? And handing it to my mom. And my mom says, well, your dad is into some problems with drugs. It's because he got involved with truck driving and some of the men that he worked with, and he's gotten caught up into some stuff, but don't worry, he's going to go to rehab. And that was the first time that I heard the word rehab and go, okay, what does this mean? And so she explained it to me. Again, in this moment, I'm listening to my mom talk about my dad being in rehab all of a sudden, and what does narcotics mean, and what does anonymous mean, and what does it all mean, and how does this affect me as a 12-year-old? And she explains to me that dad's going to have to go away for a couple of weeks, that we are going to tell the other sisters that he was going on a business trip to learn a new trade of some sort. But I was the only one that knew that he was in a rehab house. So I think then it kind of started. At the time, I felt very like, okay, this is my responsibility. And I felt most proud that my mom had confided in me as a child. Looking back, obviously, that probably wasn't the best thing to do. And I don't blame my mom. She really needed somebody to lean into, but that person was me. And so I kind of came into like, okay, this is my role in this, and this is where I will help her. So I kept that a secret. After that, my dad was I realized what a very belligerent addict he was. He did not deal with really any obstacles that were hard in life. He drank himself in and out of jobs. My mom put him through an associate's degree in college, trying to get him to stay in a job. Once he was in a job, he was good for about 3 or 4 months, and he was sober for that time period, but you could always see it coming back around. As I went into high school, another part of my job that I kind of took on myself was making sure everything was certain, making sure the house was clean for my mom, and making sure that I went into the bedroom where my dad's recliner was, and I pulled out all bottles of vodka, Jose Cuervo, cheaper, very accessible types of alcohol that my dad would just stash away. They were in drawers, they were in the recliner. I remember doing a sweep throughout the day, going in there when I got home from school, making sure, okay, if the alcohol wasn't there, then everything would be okay. Because eventually I got to where I was like, I'm not really sure what is going to happen when I walk into the house. Is there going to be something thrown at you? My dad was very physically and emotionally abusive to my mom and to my sisters and I. He made it very aware that he always wanted sons, and he got 4 daughters. So there was a lot of how can I be loved by my dad, but I'm not a boy, but how can I be loved? You almost develop this perfectionistic way of life. I'm going to be the best student I can be. I'm going to be the best daughter I can be. I'm going to be the best athlete. I got involved in everything in school, in theater, in tennis. I ran track. I was popular. I had a lot of friends. If I could make him proud of me, maybe he would stop using drugs, and he would stop drinking alcohol. If I could help my mom keep the chores up to speed, our house was always a mess, a constant disaster. Because again, my mom was working full time, taking care of 4 girls, essentially by herself, while my dad was in and out. He would disappear for days on end and come back, and you never knew what you were gonna get. Were you gonna get the fun loving guy who would laugh at you a little bit, pick up his guitar and play a little bit of music, or would you get something literally thrown at you because you said something wrong, or you came in, or he didn't like what you were wearing, or depending on how much alcohol he had drank for the afternoon. So that's kind of where my journey with alcohol and drugs started. Ironically, again, my mom is a pharmacist, and I, at 16, started working with my mom as a pharmacy technician. I loved to spend time with her and really just looked up to her, and actually babysat a lot of the kids that she was pharmacist with, and really developed a great relationship with the hospital there in Dalton. So that kind of became my way of my mom and I bonding. We spent a lot of time together. It was also a way of also keeping tabs on her, making sure she was okay. I always worried about my mom to make sure that she was doing okay. I think at an early age, I just developed this like maturity that really you probably shouldn't have when you're 13, 14 years old. But that was the role that I assumed in this puzzle piece of my family's life. I wanted people to be happy. I was constantly checking on my sisters and making sure they were good. And as long as everybody seemed good on the surface, if we could tuck things away, if we could hide the hard and hide in the darkness, everything seemed to be copacetic, and nobody got things thrown at them, and nobody got called words that were terrible. I can remember thinking a lot of times the verbal abuse was so bad that I wish my dad would just full on punch me in the face. Like, just, that you wish that physical pain could be seen and felt as much as it was on the inside. And I felt that for my sisters on a physical level too. And you're always trying to divert attention. I always kind of, if I saw one of my sisters starting to get in trouble or starting to get picked on, kind of deflect that situation. As I got older and started to drive, I would take them out of the house. I remember vividly the cherry limeade slush from Sonic. It may still be around, I don't know. But my sisters I'd say, okay, let's go. If it'd be late at night, whenever, I'd say, oh, I'd hear some commotion. I'd hear something about to erupt, and there was a fighting and the yelling and screaming in the house. And so I'd say, oh, let's get in the car and let's go to Sonic and let's get a cherry limeade slush. And here they go, little ducklings behind me. It was always me doing a head count. Like, are my sisters good? They're good. Everybody's good. Okay, let's get out of the house. Make sure this was over when we come back. I always worried about my mom, but I thought, well, at least if I can protect my sisters from this, then at least I'm doing my part. As I got older, I graduated high school. I decided to go to Berry College, which was only about 45 minutes away. And I did that because I wanted to stay close to my mom. I'm very glad that I did that because I loved Barry. A big university was not for me. I was able to still drive home on the weekends and check up on my sisters and work at the hospital as her pharmacy tech. I loved babies, always wanted to be a mom, and always really thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. So I went to Barry and on a pre-med track. I thought I'm going to be a doctor. There was a pre-med group of students at Barry, and they allowed you to shadow certain physicians in Rome. And I shadowed an orthopedic surgeon, and it was just an in-office like post-op procedure. And Ashley goes, pew, pew, and passes out, splits my eyebrow open. And I go, okay, ended up with a concussion, was so embarrassed. And the physician was like, oh, it's normal, no big deal. It's just some blood and some this and this. It'll be fine. You'll get over it. Everybody does. So then I thought, okay, well, orthopedics pretty harsh area of medicine. Maybe I'll go and I'll shadow a pediatrician with what I really want to do. And on that particular day, again, this was just God being like, okay, I'm going to lead you down this path, but it's not always going to be easy, but I'm going to show you this. Cause I was dead set. I was going to be a pediatrician. This is what I wanted to do. So I shadowed a pediatrician. And then on that particular day, there was a 2-year-old that they needed to hold down, and get blood from. It was just, what is happening? This was traumatic. I'm like, no, I envisioned me with a little scope around my neck and a cute little pediatrician, and just listen to their lungs and check their ears. And that's the way I thought that pediatricians worked. And I'm like, wait a minute, they have to see blood and they have to. And then I learned more about medical school, how everybody has to rotate through that area. And I felt like, oh gosh, I'm coming to the end of my very college career. I have almost got my 4-year degree. I'm applying to medical school, and this does not feel right to me. I don't like it. I feel nauseous. I feel like I'm going to pass out every time I'm around needles and blood. And so about that time, there was a group that was forming at the hospital that we worked at of surgeons, ophthalmologists, and a group of doctors that were going to go on a medical mission trip to Peru. And so I graduated Barry a semester early, and they were going on this medical mission trip. And I said, okay, I'll go with you. And they were like, yeah, we need somebody to run our pharmacy. We're going to be doing surgeries, and we really need someone to run the pharmacy. And so I went on this medical mission trip, and I immediately was like, this is my calling. I have been pushing this away, of being a pharmacist, because I thought, oh, you're just being a pharmacist just because your mom is, or it's familiar to you. But I went and prepared medicine in this like shack in the middle of the Andes Mountains, and these where they were performing hernia surgeries and giving kids glasses for the first time. And I was able to see these children see for the first time and see how medication really helped them. And it was wild. I came home from that trip. This is what I want to do. And so I applied to pharmacy school, got in, actually went to Mercer where my mom had gone, and got an alumni scholarship. And so that was like, okay, we're set, we're good. Meanwhile, things were still rocky at home, and my mom was still trying to deal with covering up for my dad was still in and out of jobs. He in the interim of all of that had gastric bypass surgery, because my dad was very morbidly obese as well. So a part of my need to control environments and be perfection, I always thought, well, I'll never be overweight, I'll always be fit, I always want to be healthy, I never want to be like my dad. So a part of that, just kind of assuming the role of a mini mom, I also had an eating disorder in college. And again, that was just going back to the need to control the environment. If I could be perfect, if I could be healthy. I took diet pills when I went to college. It was not a good relationship with food and exercise. I would work out, I would run miles, hours a day after I went and did all my studies. So that was all happening. I was trying to get over that in the meantime, and thinking, oh, this is just me not wanting to gain the freshman 15 when I went to college. And now here I am applying for pharmacy school, and exercise was always very important to me. It felt like a release, and it was. It felt like a way to control my environment, and it was. And again, it kept going back to, if I can be this pretty thin, perfect little daughter, maybe my dad would become sober. Maybe he wouldn't hurt my mom anymore. Maybe my mom would really be real with me and tell me how she really feels, because I just thought she was superwoman. She was always around. She had 4 of us, worked a full-time job as a pharmacist, put food on the table, taught us morals and values, took us to church. I really feel like in my mind, when I look back and I think about her, that she was so omnipresent. It was like, how are you at a trombone band competition? And my younger sister had a black belt in karate. And then I was in tennis and theater. Like, how are you there? She was always there. And she was funny and beautiful and smart. And she was just everything. She just overcompensated. And meanwhile, I never knew really to the depth of how much she was putting herself last. She would talk to our priest at our church sometimes, but she never got therapy. She was never in anything like that. So I think what she was modeling was keep going. It was survival mode. You got to keep going. You got to take care of your kids. You got to take care of your family. And she was very devoted to my father. I think she really, truly believed that she could rehabilitate him. She could make it better for him. She loved him very, very much. And that became almost, it was just a very codependent relationship. And so that kind of just continued. I would go home back and forth. Even once I got into pharmacy school, it was in Atlanta. I kind of allowed myself to start living a little bit of a life that where not necessarily college life, because the party life wasn't ever for me, because to me that represented alcohol, it represented drugs, it represented a life I didn't want to, and also I didn't want to ever lose control. I was a control freak. I was a perfectionist. I just thought if I lose control, then that's when things start happening and falling apart. So I just kind of stayed the path of exercise and be perfect and go to school and get grades. So living in Atlanta, I was still checking back in with my mom and my sisters, and they were approaching high school. Life seemed to be getting a little bit better. My mom had filed for divorce and separation. She had filed a restraining order. She was getting away from my dad for the first time. She left, she built a house. She had been saving all these years, had been somehow saving money to build her dream house. She bought 40 acres of land and started building her house on it. And she let my dad just have our old house that we grew up in. And we thought for the first time that this is going to be the breakaway. And, never did I ever bring up to my mom, I wish she would divorce dad. I wish she would get rid of him. I knew she loved him. I loved him. I was very devoted to him as a daughter as well, even though he was very terrible. He was very, very belligerent and abusive. But I think that's what you innately want. You want the person that's supposed to take care of you in this life to love you and take care of you too. And so when she started building her dream house, it really felt like for the first time that I thought, okay, my dad has hit rock bottom. He is living on his own. He's got a restraining order. He's pretty much lost his daughters. He's lost his wife, and maybe this is rock bottom. I still had hope for him then. And I remember being and living in Decatur in the house and being in pharmacy school, and my dad calling me from another rehab place and saying, oh, I just need somebody to bring me cigarettes, and I need somebody to be here with me for the family visits, and I would go home for that too. As long as everybody was safe and happy, I could be at the detriment of myself. I felt like I was doing something good for our family, and so I um I felt like it was a turning point. I really believed, okay, my dad's hit rock bottom. We've done this our whole life since I was 12 now. And, I'm 23. This is the summer going into my mom having her own home, her own land. She even installed this huge gate at the end of her property because I think she was fearful. I know she was fearful. My dad had held her at gunpoint and at knife point multiple times. And so she was scared for her life. And in that interim period, when her house was finished, my dad threatened to kill himself and had a gun in his house. She had sheriffs go over and retrieve all the guns in his house so that he wouldn't do that. She was still looking out for him and really wanted the best for him. And I thought in this fairy tale land mind of my own that thought, okay, well, my dad will heal, my mom will have this new house, and eventually they'll get back together and he will be this. I wanted so much to believe in this whole like fairy tale ending where my parents get back together, my dad is healthy and healed from his addiction, and he's no longer abusive, and we live happily ever after in this house with a pool on this 40 acres of land, and maybe we can get some horses and my mom will be happy for the first time. That absolutely did not happen, unfortunately. My mom called me on October 15th of 2004. It was a Saturday night and I was in Atlanta, and she said, I really need you to come home tonight if you can. I am scared and I really just need some distraction. And I asked her if everything was okay, and she said that my dad had tried to come onto the property and and she had called the cops again, and that she was just afraid. And she said, I think we're safe. Everything's fine. Everything's settled down, but I do feel like I would like you to be here. So I drove up to back to Tunnel Hill and spent the night with my mom. We went to Outback. I remember it so vividly. I took her to dinner thinking, okay, we're going to distract her. She wanted a few new things from Home Goods. So we went in there and we bought some things for the house. And we went back to the house, and she had put a pool table in the basement of the new house, thinking all the girls will come back and it'll be a place for us to gather. And I remember thinking, as we got back to the house, I said, Mom, you really need to get some rest. I could tell she had had a very hard week. She was still working and all of this mess with the divorce with my dad, and just living in a lot of fear, a fear that I did not even understand, because he had threatened to kill her multiple times. And so I remember going down in the basement. I had a couple of friends over, my boyfriend at the time and a friend of mine. We were playing some pool down in the basement. And I remember going upstairs and saying, Mom, you really need to get some rest. And she's like, you know what, you're right. I'm gonna get in bed. You're here. I feel safe, and I'll go to bed. And I said, okay, great. So I remember walking down to the basement, and as I'm down there, we're playing some pool. Probably about 15 minutes later, it's about 10:15 at night. I hear I just hear her upstairs. I hear footsteps upstairs, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is she doing? She's probably up there like cleaning the closet out, or doing something productive. And I told her not to do that. And so something told me to go up the stairs. And so I did. And when I got to the top of the stairs, I realized that she had a lot of beautiful doors built to the back side of the property that were all glass doors to the back porch. And she had a huge wraparound. That's what she always wanted. She said, I could see myself on this porch in a rocking chair watching grandkids in that pool out there. She did all of that for us in our future. But the glass doors were open to the back deck. And I thought that was very strange, because here it is, it's October, the doors are open. I thought she was going to bed, and I could hear some commotion in her bedroom. And it turns out my dad had broken into our house and was physically assaulting her. And so I went and broke them apart and got in between them in her closet. And I didn't know my dad had a gun. I never felt scared of him. I just went in and tried to get him off of her. And I saw her, and that was all I could see, was get her to safety. But my dad did have a gun, and I don't know how, to this day. I wrestled with it for a really long time, how he did not shoot me too, but he shot my mom one time and got her right in the heart, and then shot himself in the head. So in a blink of an eye, I lost everything. It was very, very difficult in that moment. When you think about witnessing a crime, it's tragic and traumatic enough as it is, but to see the two people that you are supposed to take care of you be gone in an instant, and in that manner, it was, I froze, numb, called 911. A boyfriend, who would then become my husband, started chest compressions on my mom and tried to save her, and she was gone. And so in that moment, everything changed. I realized, all of a sudden at 23, I'm an orphan. I have to now call. Nobody else was home but me. And again, it seemed so fitting that it would be me to see her for the last time. And I did get to tell her I loved her. I did get to hug her. She did get to see me before she died. I was the last person that she could see, that she saw that night. To be sitting here and telling the story to you and to other people, and not be vomiting or shaking, and not be crying about it, is what 7 years of therapy has done for me. So I'm very thankful for that. But after that, it was traumatic. My parents did not have wills. We had to bury both of them. We cremated my dad, and he still to this day doesn't have a headstone. He's buried up in cemetery in Tennessee. But my mom, we had a huge Catholic ceremony funeral for her. I watched my 80-year-old grandfather bury his daughter, and for no reason other than domestic violence and his addiction problem. He later, I would find out, the toxicology report showed he was very high on drugs and very, very drunk. I don't even know how he got over to our house. I don't know how he drove a car onto the property. It was very plotted and planned. He had a plan, and he executed that, and he won. And so on that day, October 15th of 2004, my life flipped upside down. And all of a sudden I had a 14-year-old sister and a 17-year-old sister, and me at 23, and my older sister at 24, going, what the hell do we do now? So we had houses to sell, and everything went to probate. It was just a mess. And what I did was go into survival mode, like, and go back into that perfectionistic mode. How can I help? What am I doing? What do we need to do? How can I help you? How can we be safe? How can we be certain? What can I do? And so that's the mode I went into. And I think that I just learned that as a coping mechanism. So we tried to pick up the pieces as best as we can. And fast forward, I took 1 week off of pharmacy school. I was not ready to go back. Mercer encouraged me to get a psychologist. I did. He was a male psychologist who threw me straight into EMDR, which is for those of that you don't know, is for people who have post-traumatic stress disorder, who have witnessed something. It's eye movement, vibrations. It helps with nightmares and insomnia when you witness something like that. But I was not ready for that. I had never seen a therapist in my whole life, and he was a man. So I had trust issues with men to begin with, just losing my dad. And I saw him 3 times because the school basically said, we would like for you to stay in pharmacy school. We believe that you can do this, but we are ready to give you the therapy that you need. But I wasn't ready for it. I was scared of it. I said, no, I can do this on my own. And so I flipped into some weird survival mode, got married 6 months later to my high school sweetheart, and finished pharmacy school, applied for a residency. And I did a year of residency. And then I said, okay, I'm ready to have a baby at 27. And then I had another baby at 29, and I had another baby at 34. And it was like never in my life did I think that I needed to slow down and really, really break this down or get some therapy. And my therapist now, lifesaver that she is, always equates it to your emotional backpack. You can carry around an emotional backpack for a long time. People do it all the time, and they stuff things in it, and they stuff things in it. And then one day your emotional backpack breaks. I was a successful pharmacist. I was a wife. I was a mom. I had everything I needed. I had my sisters and I were still very, very close. I had best friends. I had a very good support system. I had a job I loved. I was the definition of success. I was like, look at me, look at all these things that I'm checking boxes. And I've done all this. And not one day had I spent in developing my mental health and thinking that is just as important as your physical health. And so fast forward to 2018, when my oldest son turned 10. In the kitchen of this house that I'm sitting in right now, my oldest son, Henry, started choking on a hot dog. Nobody really thought it was as traumatic as I did, but I had to do the Heimlich. It came up, thank God, with one stomach thrust. We're healthcare professionals, so we learn how to do those things. And until you're doing them, you go, I don't know what I'm doing. And especially thinking you're going to do this on your own son. But in that moment, everything flashed back to me. I had flashbacks of losing my mom, and I realized I had been blaming myself for losing her, that I couldn't stop I didn't know he had a gun. I didn't know, could I have heard him sooner? Why didn't I hear the door open? Why didn't I hear the car pull up in the driveway? Why didn't I, why couldn't it have been me? I had realized I'd been blaming myself silently in all these years for losing her and for not being able to rehab my dad, not being good enough for him. And all of that came crashing down. And I literally could not get out of the fetal position for about 2 days. And I said, okay, this is my emotional backpack strap has broken, and it's time for me to get some help. To make me cry. Finding my therapist was a lifesaver for me. Because I realized, going back to the scripture that you picked, um, in the depths of despair, you can let that crush you, or you can pick yourself back up and you can heal from it, and you can use it for the betterment of yourself, of your kids. I looked around that table, and those kids were looking at me, and Henry, I've, saving him and thinking, they're looking at me, and what am I showing them? Am I showing them transparency? Am I repeating the cycle of what my mom was trying to do, protect me for all those years and shield me? But really, they were just shoving things in closets and shoving things under the bed, and really being transparent about those things and those fears really was what I needed and what we needed as her daughters. But you go into that protective mode. And I think in that moment, I go, no more of this, no more of this, not communicating, not saying the hard things, pretending like everything was okay, pretending like I could control everything, and pretending like I was perfect. I'm human. And now I'm going to show all of these emotions, and I'm going to get some help. And that's when everything broke down. And it was a lifesaver for me. It showed me that we, as human beings, that grace that I was talking about that God gives us, we have to give it to ourselves. And so that started my 7 year. I've now been in therapy pretty consistently for 7 years, cognitive behavioral therapy. I have been really, really scared of that EMDR again. Although I do feel like now I am courageous enough to try that. I do think it would help me. I do recommend if someone has seen any sort of physical or any traumatic car accidents, and if you have flashbacks or nightmares, that is probably a very successful therapy. But it is a very scary thought because it brings everything back up to light. But cognitive behavioral therapy with my therapist has changed everything. It allowed me to talk openly with my kids. Unfortunately, it was the demise of my marriage. My now ex-husband of 2 years, I also went through a really bad divorce. And as a result of non-transparency, of learning that all those coping mechanisms of the past, of not being able to talk about things, finally being able to talk about things and becoming this new person that was trying to heal, being with someone who necessarily wasn't on the same page. And so I feel like I am a different person now. I feel like my 40s have become the years of awakening, have come out of this shell of well, you don't have to hide who you are. Come into a new relationship, which I'm so thankful for with my I'm now recently engaged. Our stories parallel so much, having 3 kids and finding love again and finding someone that will jump into the deep end of life with you, jump into that hard and not cover it up and be transparent and realize that we are humans. And if one thing my therapist has taught me is that our emotions don't define us. Our emotions have the word motion in them, and we can feel everything all at the same time. We can be happy, we can be sad, we can grieve, we can have joy. Everything is in motion all the time. And that sadness, that grief, I had a lot of self-hatred. I was doing a lot of things detrimentally to myself, over exercising, it's not eating right and not sleeping and thinking I was just superhuman and not really taking care of myself. And what am I showing my children? That you are a human being and that your fears and your grief don't define you. What defines you is how you respond to that and coming out of it and allowing people to help you, ask for help, get help, and talk about it, bring to light the darkness, sit in it, don't run from it. And really, that's where the growth happens. And that is what I've learned from losing my mom. And I've learned that addiction is something I am still very terrified of. I preach to my children about recovery for some people and how drugs and alcohol are not something that you mess around with. So I applaud you, everyone who you've had on your podcast, for coming to the end of their addiction and starting that journey and that road to recovery of being sober. I prayed so many years that my dad would get to and never did. So I applaud you for that and know that that's a lifesaver, not only for you, but for your kids as well. I been a part of domestic violence groups. I went to Al-Anon. I have read self-help books on living with an alcoholic and how that changes your DNA and how living through traumatic stress and witnessing crimes. I'm so thirsty for knowledge. And again, my faith, my relationship with God has come stronger and stronger. And even in the light of divorce, addiction, loss, suicide, homicide, all of these things, you can find Jesus, you can find God. And if you just keep your eye on him, he will pull you through that. He will pull you through the eye of the storm. And I think that's where your relationship are the strongest. Yeah. That's my story.
Wow. I don't know if you noticed, but I was crying the whole time.
Yeah.
I apologize to the viewers on YouTube because I had snot running down my face. So what got me, because I know your story a little bit, but I've never heard you tell your story. But the thing that got me the most teared up was when you were talking about your mom and the porch that she always wanted. And I've seen pictures of your mom because you post her picture every year. And I was picturing your mom sitting on that porch. I hope that she got the chance to at least sit on the rocking chair on that porch, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. Your story, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible what you've gone through, that you've came through on the other side. I think a lot of people who have gone maybe through something similar or similar in terms of the trauma, their lives ended up very different than yours. You know, having the genetic disposition of alcoholism, growing up in that trauma where your life is really, really unstable in your childhood. Typically, life ends differently for you, but you have come through with such grace, and it's amazing to watch that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask you a few questions. Some of them might be a little heavy. Have you forgiven your father?
I realize now, on the other side of my journey with mental health and therapy, that He was also struggling with bipolar and he was self-medicating. So that part of me has forgiven him, because he didn't know. He was very, very poor growing up, had five brothers and sisters, and had a dad who also beat his mom. There was a lot of domestic violence there. So that cycle continued with him, unfortunately. And I saw glimpses of my dad try to be better. And that's what I hold on to these days. My kids never knew my mom, and I talk about her all the time. She was hilarious and loved kids. And I can see especially my youngest, who's 11, I see so much of her in him. And I think it's like a comical joke. She's in heaven going like, ha ha, I always told you about that one. He's wild and he's untamed. And she kind of was that way. I have moments where I hate my dad. I hate him for what he did, but I think my heart is less hardened than it's ever been. That's a journey that I'm on to forgive him, yes, for the mental health that he never treated, the way that he took my mom down with him. I'm still struggling with that. I struggle with that for sure. Yeah.
In regards to your spirituality, you mentioned you grew up in church. How did that shift for you through everything that you went through when you were younger?
Never did I ever think that God did this to me. For me, it's just continued to make me stronger. I think that's because my mom and my grandfather was very, very methodically traditional Catholic. But what he has shown me, what my mom showed me, was steadfast prayer. And I think always going to God with your fears and with your doubts and your prayers in general. For me, spirituality has just strengthened over time. It was always something I could fall back on. And I think that's actually a good way of looking at it. I used to think of it as falling back on, and now it's something I run to. You put first, you go, okay, whoa, what's this? What the priority is God, and how can I make that the priority instead of this is my backup plan? I'm not in control. I think I tried to control things so long, and my spirituality journey has shown me that I'm not in control of literally nothing. And it's empowering and it's relieving to let go of that.
I wanted to ask you, when you were younger in your 20s, was it hard to connect with other people because they hadn't seen what you had seen and gone through what you had gone through?
No, not for me. I have this way of thinking about it that I was glad it was me and not other people. I have this feeling, and I don't know if this is just my bleeding heart, because I really do. I've become to be a people pleaser. It's been to my detriment in my life, but also I've been known. It's like, oh, Ashley, she's so sweet, she's so kind, but I truly am genuinely like that. So I've always felt like I am glad that I was the person that was there with my mom last, and my sisters were not. I am glad that I carry that burden. I am glad that nobody else has to feel the way I feel, because I've been lucky enough to feel God's grace and God's love to pull me through that on the other side of it. And it's a constant journey, but I never felt like I couldn't. No, I almost felt like that's my cross to bear, and I'm glad I have it and that you don't.
A lot of times, big T trauma, like what your family went through, breaks a family apart. But from what I've seen, from my viewpoint, you and your sisters have just bonded together.
Yes,
And I think that's so beautiful. Tell me how they're doing. How are all your sisters doing?
It's so funny how we're all so very different. My baby sister, I think, struggles the most because she was 14 when they died, but she has come so far with her therapy journey, her medication journey, and relying on me as not only her big sister, but also as a pharmacist to guide her through that. My older sister has 5 children, so she has dove into motherhood and is the one of the best moms I know. And her youngest is spastic quadriplegic, cerebral palsy and moya disease. And so she's such an advocate for kids with special needs and kids with disabilities. So I feel like my older sister, Jessica, has really taken her grief and her loss and just put it into her children. And then my other younger sister, Marcy, she is also as wild and untamed and fun as my mom. And I think a lot of that is connecting with my mom, and that's her therapy too. She's a great mom. My sisters are just great mothers. There's 11 grandkids. I consider these are her grandkids, but there's 11 cousins. So when we get together, we are loud and there are kids running around everywhere. The oldest is 20 and the baby is going to be 9. We all struggle with loss and grief, and we still recognize the day of her death, but we also celebrate her birthday, and we celebrate so many things. My mom was big on birthdays, and one thing she passed down to us was celebrating birthdays and decorating mantles and really making your kids feel that is your one special day. And my mom was really, really good at that. And I can see that in my kids. I can see that in my nieces and nephews. So we each deal with that in our own way and have our own grief and loss. But there's a lot of angst between the 4 of us, because as we get older, you do realize there's still some of that emotional backpacking you've got to unload. And so there are times, there are moments where maybe two of us are not speaking, but we always come back around. And I think that's just the family dynamics, and also just realizing again that we're only human, and life is hard, and it's giving each other that grace.
You had mentioned about the eating disorder that you had, and they're
Yeah.
actually very common. About 1 in 4 women will go through an eating disorder through adolescence and then early college years. You had mentioned the part about overexercising. You still use exercise to this day. So how did you shift your relationship with exercise to a healthier one?
So, with the help of my therapist, she actually pointed that out to me. She said, she would check in, we would do some meditation, and she'd say, "Okay, so how we doing?" I'd say, "Oh, well, I got my workout in." And she would say, "Oh, well, what did we do today?" And I was like, "Oh, I ran for 45 minutes, and then I did an hour workout." And she's like, "Wow, I didn't realize that you had so much time." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm not really sleeping that much." And she brought it to light. She said, "This can actually be to your detriment and can be harmful to you." And I'm like, "No, it's always been very positive for me." And this is only like 7 years ago when I started, so I had always, even after I'd had every baby, it's like 6-week checkup, I'm back in shape. Let's go. Because mentally I needed it. But I've realized since then that excessive exercising is just really me running from all my problems, and I can't outrun them. And so that's the thing, is that I've developed this now healthy eating. Food, to me, is fuel. It's fuel for your body. You need it to function, and you need it to take care of your babies, and you need it to take care of your spouse and do your job. And if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't take care of anybody else. And so it's really made me shift gears and go, okay, what time do I have today? I do set that time. It is very important for me to set that 1 hour aside every day. And what can I get in this hour? Lifting weights has been very important for me. And that's good for us to show our kids that you need that mom time, you need that self time, but also to balance that and to know, okay, I'm tired, and my body also needs rest and fuel just as much as it needs exercise.
I love what you said about the awakening in your 40s. Me and you have lived, like you said, very parallel lives. We went through a divorce at the same time. We got engaged, I think, a week apart.
Yes.
I don't know if it's social constructs or what, but this idea that when we turn 40, we're supposed to be old hags and lock ourselves away. Because I do not believe that. I believe that this is the era where we finally have earned our confidence. Like, this is our time to shine.
Absolutely.
Where did we come under this idea that we had to like go hide away at this age? Like, I'm ready. I'm here now. This is act 2.
It's so funny you say that, because all of my friends, I feel like, are evolving into these beautiful butterflies. When you ask me at 25, like, "Oh, are you going to be 40?" I'm like, I'm never going to be 40. 40 is so old, but I feel so good in my 40s. I feel like I've reclaimed my life. And while there was a lot of hard, I lost a marriage that I never saw ending. I was with my high school sweetheart for 18 years. I never saw that ending. And what my awakening years taught me is that I needed transparency. I needed communication. And when you don't have that, you feel empty inside. I want to take care of my skin, and I want to exercise, and this is me. And you live so comfortably in this skin, and it's so unapologetically okay to be who you are. For the first time, I feel like, because in your 20s, you're still trying to figure it out. I feel like in my 30s, I was just a mom. And while I am still a mom, and I define myself as a mom, obsessed with my children, you've realized for the first time, like, hey, I'm an individual and I'm a person in my 40s.
Yeah.
Get it, girl.
Go get it. Yeah, I feel so similar. I could literally talk to you for 4 hours, but my platform won't let me do it. It'll kick me out. But we have come to the lightning round of our episode. So I ask the same 5 questions to each guest. And I honestly do it because I'm curious, but also I feel like the listeners get really invested in who you are. And so they're curious too. Okay, so the first question is, you're given 3 options. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
Terrified of the deep sea waters. And it seems to me like a bungee jump, going headfirst into something, is just not my nature. Well, although skydiving is not really either, but you're attached to someone. So I'm going to go with skydiving.
Very mature answer of you. Number 2, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
So I'm just going to speak for currently, because if you had asked me in my early college years, it would have been like "Get Low" by Lil Jon. Like everywhere I went, that would have been my song. But currently, there are two that I am like living and loving. And it's partly because of my little guy. He loves music, Billie Eilish and Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift. But Abracadabra by Lady Gaga is like on my workout playlist and gives me
Okay.
so much energy. And also Kelsey Ballerini's Baggage. Like I feel
Mm.
like it's on repeat.
Number 3, what is your favorite Disney movie?
We definitely have one that was always my childhood favorite, which was Cinderella. She was a princess that had to work hard and prove herself. She was always in the face of adversity and very resilient and got what she wanted in the very end because she worked so hard. I really love Frozen too because of the
Mm.
sisterhood. That would be a tie for me because just the sisters leaning into each other. Love it. Love the
I
music.
love
Mhm.
it. I love Elsa so much. Like I feel very similar to her. She's got like anxiety and I do too. And I just
Yes.
feel like we're the
But
same.
she also like taps into that superpower.
Like she's
Love it.
strong, but she's got some
Yes.
mental health issues.
Yep.
Number 4, what is something you're obsessed with?
Something I'm obsessed with. I will tell you most recently, I'm obsessed with my two supplements, creatine, which I started in the last 2 years, and colostrum. I could talk about those two supplements and will never go without them ever again, and how much they both have changed my life. So that's on a separate podcast.
We'll
Totally
do a
go
separate
into.
one. I love
Yes.
it. All right, last question. What does freedom mean to you?
So, freedom to me means having a content heart. There's a prayer that I say when I leave the house every single day over my kids, and I say, God, please keep my kids safe, healthy, and happy. I feel like it covers all the bases. And as long as I have my kids and my family, and we are living in this calm, content place where we can talk freely about things and we can love each other freely for who we are. And we never have to act or pretend like we are anything but who we are, and we are loved no matter what. That's freedom to me. That's contentment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful answer. I
Yeah.
can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Megan.
I think I said this 12 times, but it truly is an honor to share your story. And you mean a lot to me. I admire you
Yes.
so much for your
So much.
strength. You have an emotional strength, a physical strength, a mental strength. I mean, life could have dragged you down and you fought. You're a fighter. Ultimately,
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Thank you.
that's what I
Thank you.
respect is the fight and the grit that you have. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And you are like a sister to me in that power strong women. Go for it. Go get what you want and equally as strong. And I love that. Thank you for having. I
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it.
Act 2, girl. Act 2.
Yes. I
All right. Love you.
love you too.
Bye.